Welcome to One Man's Tracks, and welcome to what may be the final episode of a segment I like to call Goodwill Dumping. We've got to episode 10. We get to talk about the bands Bush and Moist in the same video, and I think that's funny enough and a good enough conclusion to end off this little mini series. I honestly don't enjoy kind of grinding through these albums and picking out the good from them to the point where this, as easy it is to film, it's tough to prep for, and I don't feel like I get too much of a cohesive message across about the bands, and I just kind of blast you with a couple of songs maybe to try out. I don't know, maybe I'll tinker with the ideas a bit, but I need a break from it. Either way, this whole building is losing its top soon, and I'm gonna need a new place to shoot these videos and figure out some new segments to really keep myself interested in music, and this isn't quite doing it for me, but we're gonna hit you with a couple of last goodwill dumps here and toss some of these albums back to the thrift shop for somebody else to enjoy more than I do. Let's get into Bush's debut album from 1994. This is 16 Stone. Stone because these guys are from Britain. I think 16 stone is a fairly average weight. Maybe it's a bit overweight. I honestly don't measure anything in stone, but I think I'm probably less than 16 stone. Either way, they derive a huge amount of their sound from that Seattle grunge scene, even though they are pretty adamant about not. It unfortunately, consequentially, makes it just more of a commercial grab at the end of the commercial peak of the genre itself, and they were labeled basically out the gate as a post-grunge band. Maybe this might even be the very first post-grunge album, and really the whole idea of post-grunge doesn't connect with the idea of grunge very well. That is kind of sort of a not really wanting to sound like anything else, kind of brutal, more guttural, more raw, and these guys take that, clean it up, and make their own little version of it. And sure, you got the hits like Glycerine, which is ultimately a jam. I like the song. It's pretty undeniable, but it's so Nirvana, maybe beyond the violins that bring it that really good weight. It just takes all its sound from a different band, and really you get to songs like Bomb, Little Things, Testosterone, and they're all built off of these classic grunge bass and guitar riffs. Everything's in the track Swim. They've got more of that decent grunge sound to them. Swim's got that really screamed outro that shows the emotion there a little bit. Beyond that, though, maybe the dope bass line that comes out on Come Down, it's a bit reminiscent of Massive Attack here. What's that song? Safe from Harm. They kind of blend that with a dramatic grunge sound, but the whole thing, the lens is kind of this faux despair that doesn't really connect, and it drifts off, and it was a grind to get through this album, if I'm going to be honest, and I think it's better than their follow-up, which came out 2 years later. The only real high point is the rawer, grittier production from Nirvana's final producer on In Utero, Steve Albini. He was their first choice to produce that album, but was unavailable at the time, and so came out with their number one debut album, Razorblade Suitcase, and they have to be called Bush X because there was a Canadian band called Bush before that, and that little addition is a marker of a Canadian sold album here. I got that Bush X, copyright rules. This album has that grit, has that raw grunge production, but oof, I can't say a lot of good things about this. Swallowed and Bone Driven are probably the most memorable, the better songs on the thing, but they are so Nirvana that it just, you might as well be playing In Utero. You might as well be playing any of their other stuff. This 96 kind of post-grunge mess just has no real hooks. There's no, I don't know, substance here. It just feels like run-of-the-mill, whatever grunge sound you feel like putting over, and then the lyrics just barely connect in most cases. I have to point out the terrible song Mouth. If you want to listen to some bad lyricism, that's probably the worst that comes up here. Maybe the first two tracks, you can really enjoy that grittiness, the new production, and sure, there's some more emotion there, but yeah, blah blah blah. It runs its course, and ultimately Bush just doesn't do it for me. I don't understand the appeal beyond maybe the couple of hits that got a ton of radio play. I just don't get it, but they came out with an album called The Kingdom just last year, 2020, and I've heard it called their best work yet, but ultimately I don't think post-grunge is a genre that is suited for my enjoyment. It just doesn't make sense to me. Give me grunge, or just give me alt-rock, not this like more melodious, less gritty kind of version of grunge. Just give me that pure form, or just move on to something new. I'd love to see someone come out with a true grunge album nowadays. I think we got a lot of things to complain about, and honestly, these post-grunge bands are hard to take seriously. Let's move on to an appropriate band for how sweaty it is out there. We've got the Canadian band Moist and their debut album Silver. This band falls into a pretty similar category as Bush with the post-grunge alt-rock blend. This being a little bit softer, but it's not the softness that makes me lose interest in the band. It's the overall influences that are classic rock and grunge derived that ultimately don't come together in a way that's more enjoyable here than on those classic albums that I hold so dear to my heart, that this really just doesn't quite do it for me. I love the emotion, the punch that comes out of the first tracks on both of these albums that I've got from Moist, but it hits you with that desperation, that really good blend of alt and grunge, and it leaves you wanting more, and it doesn't give you more. Sure, Kill For You is a decent sort of follow-up track, good grunge cut. The title track is moody, it's okay as well. The closing track is kind of on a similar lane, and besides that, I only really do enjoy the song Machine Punch Through, that finally has them hit that right tone, a little bit darker, a little bit more of just that element that I'm looking for in the grunge sound that feels a little bit more personal, a little bit realer than the rest of their songs, and so there's not enough hooks here either, and I don't really care much for the first album. I think I enjoy Creature a little bit more. It's got a slightly better production. It's not on the Steve Albini? Wow, I should know how to pronounce that name. It's not on that level, and that's really the saving grace for Razorblade Suitcase here, but they kick you off again with some more power, some more emotion. The song is called Hate, and so you'd expect a little bit more oomph behind it, and that's great. It gets you going, starts you off. Leave It Alone, I think, was their highest charting song, and honestly, I think it's okay. It's a little dense, honestly, for a Canadian alt-rock track, and it's noteworthy. Title track, it's alright. Shotgun, pretty good track. Disco Days, they take into a different direction. They have this almost piano-accompanied indie rock cut that I think David Usher does a great job on the vocals there, and that's just kind of a noteworthy change-up that gives this album a little bit more interest for me, I guess. Tangerine, kind of derivative, decent grunge, post-grunge cut. And then, which number? Ophelia? Wait, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, Gasoline. The closing track is a great blend of classic rock and grunge, and
it's notable for the performances, but beyond that, a lot of this is just not that memorable. It doesn't stick with me. I listened to it a couple times, and these guys are good. Like, they're great artists, and it's decent background alt, post-grunge, whatever you want to call it, but it isn't enough to make me want to listen to some Moist, or listen to some Bush. I will much sooner just throw on In Utero or throw on really like Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden. Rage Against the Machine hits way harder. These guys just don't have that hiya, that kabam, the whoa, the heavy hitting vocal lines or any hooks that make you want to repeat that song. You've got the singles, they're okay, and I'd say stick with the singles. Maybe try out Moist's album that comes out later this year. It's probably got a bit more of a message to it. I hear it's environmentally focused, and I'm all about that, so might be worth a try. Maybe try out Bush's album that came out last year, The Kingdom. I think No More Ocean, something like that. End of the Ocean, I believe, is Moist's album that's coming out in October. Try those out. In the meantime, here's all my Goodwill dumps that I've taken in the past, and you can check out a playlist here of some more 90s albums I've gone over. Let me know what you think about these bands in the comments. Let me know if I've got it all wrong, and just let me know if you enjoy Goodwill dumping, because it's going away if not. I'll see you guys next time. Take good care.